My mom forgot to save me a seat at Thanksgiving, said it was too crowded, but my sister's dog had a chair. I didn't argue. I just took the pie I brought, walked out, and went home. They called me oversensitive. I didn't reply. That night, I canceled my monthly grocery contribution, froze the streaming services, and closed the family Costco account. The next morning, my selfish brother. I didn't expect much, but I expected a seat. Just one chair, one place at the table where I'd sat every Thanksgiving since I was old enough to carry a plate without dropping it. But instead, I stood in the doorway holding the pie I baked from scratch, the one I make every year because no one else ever offers, and watched as the laughter bounced around the dining room like I wasn't even there. I felt it before anyone said a word. That feeling where your chest goes cold first, then your hands, like embarrassment and betrayal, decided to shake hands at the same time. There were 12 chairs and 13 people, if you count me. 4 of them were new, my sister's husband's cousins. One was Oliver, Chloe's dog, who not only had a seat, but had a plate in front of him with mashed potatoes. My mom didn't even look confused when I asked where I was supposed to sit. She just said, "Oh, it got a little crowded this year." Like someone gets misplaced at a concert. Like I didn't bring the damn pie, pay for half the groceries, and send her a check last week when her power bill got accidentally doubled. No one looked up. No one said anything. Just my brother chewing and grinning like it was the best stuffing of his life. I left. I didn't cause a scene, didn't say a single word. I walked into the kitchen, picked up the pie, and walked out. I remember hearing my mom ask Chloe if she thought the turkey was dry as I was closing the door. The text started just before 7. Mom, Lisa, you didn't even say goodbye. Are you okay? Chloe, it's literally just a chair. You could have grabbed a stool. Ethan, this is why you can't be around people. You make everything about you. I didn't answer. I sat in my living room, turned the volume down on the TV, and opened my laptop. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I started with the Costco account. I'd opened it in my name when Dad passed, because Mom said she couldn't handle one more thing. Closed it in 6 clicks. Then the streaming services, Hulu, Netflix, Max, Disney Plus, all walked. Then the grocery fund. I'd been quietly contributing $300 a month to that shared debit card so they could split bills and buy household things. They never even said thank you. That stopped too. The next morning, 9:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. Ethan, what the hell? Costco kicked me out mid-checkout. Did you mess with the account? I didn't answer, just took another bite of pie. That was just the start. The nice version of me, the one they could count on no matter how little they offered back, was done. They didn't know it yet, but things were going to get a lot more uncomfortable. By the end of that week, they knew something was off. It started with the groceries. Chloe texted me about the family card being declined at Trader Joe's. Did the card get hacked or something? She asked. Nope, just unsubscribed from being your invisible provider. Then came Mom's confused voicemail about why Hulu logged her out during her baking shows. I listened to it twice. She still hadn't acknowledged the empty seat. No apology, no explanation, just casually annoyed like someone unplugged her toaster. I could have told them the truth right then. I could have explained exactly how it felt to stand in a house I helped pay for and realize even the dog had more value than I did. But I didn't. I let them squirm. It was overdue. Then Ethan stepped in. He always does, not out of kindness, but because he can't function when things don't orbit around him. He texted me that Sunday night, "Can you stop punishing everyone because you're in your feelings?" I didn't answer. Monday morning, I woke up to a new message. I talked to Mom. She said you made her cry. Chloe's upset. They think you're having one of your episodes again. There was the family classic. Turn inconvenience into concern. Paint anger as instability. They always called me sensitive whenever they needed me quiet. Not this time. So I stopped ignoring and started escalating. There was one last thing I hadn't touched yet. The emergency fund. It was an account I created 3 years ago when Dad got sick. I told them it was for shared family crisis, vet bills, surprise car repairs, utilities if things got rough. I never told them I was the only one who'd contributed. Not once did anyone else deposit $1, but they all had the password. I transferred the entire balance, just over $7,600, into my personal savings. I left the account name and login intact. I wanted them to log in and see the ghost town they left behind. And right on cue, I got a call from Chloe. Wednesday evening. Did something happen to the emergency account? I let it go to voicemail. She texted again 2 hours later. We needed to pay for Oliver's surgery next week. Mom said you might have moved the money. No response. Thursday morning, Ethan tried calling, then texting. Lisa, this is seriously messed up. That fund was for everyone. You can't just empty it. But I could, and I had. And maybe they'd finally start realizing that I wasn't the backup generator they could plug into every time they forgot to be responsible. Later that night, I got a DM from someone I didn't expect. It was Megan, Ethan's ex. We hadn't talked in almost 2 years. Hey, random question. Did your brother seriously tell your boyfriend that you're bipolar? I stared at the message for a long time, and just like that, it became clear. They weren't just panicking. They were retaliating. They wanted their free ride back. And since I cut the cord, they went straight to sabotage. What they didn't know was that my boyfriend had been acting cold for days. Short replies, dodging plans. Now I knew why. They'd planted a lie, and it was working. When I saw Megan's message, something inside me shifted, like ice cracking underfoot. I knew my family could be petty, but going to my boyfriend with lies about my mental health, that was new. That was war. I replied fast. Megan didn't hold back. Ethan told him you were cycling again and that Thanksgiving was just another crash. Said you did this all the time. Pull away, then make yourself the victim. I asked her why she was telling me this. Because he did the same crap to me when I left. Told everyone I was unstable. I should have warned you sooner. I thanked her and called Sam, my boyfriend. He didn't pick up. That night was long. I kept replaying the last few days. The way Sam had been quieter, the way he skipped our Wednesday dinner, the short texts that ended conversations instead of continuing them. It all made sense now. They got to him. I sent him one message. I know what Ethan told you. I need you to ask yourself if anything he said actually matches how I've treated you. If you believe them, I won't fight it. But if you're unsure, talk to me, not them. He didn't respond that night or the next day. Meanwhile, the family group chat lit up like a fire alarm. Mom finally cracked. Lisa, enough is enough. We need to talk. You're hurting everyone. Whatever you think we did, I'm sure it wasn't intentional. I didn't reply. They were losing their grip and they could feel it. Chloe tried next. Please, can we just have a call? This is getting out of hand. Mom's been crying. Ethan's furious. I know it wasn't perfect, but we're family. That word didn't hold the same weight anymore. Friday night, Sam finally messaged back. I don't know what to think. He made it sound serious. I asked if we could talk in person. He agreed. Saturday morning, he came over, arms folded, guarded. I didn't try to break the tension right away. I just opened my phone and showed him my financial records. The grocery contributions, the streaming payments, the emergency fund history. The whole story laid bare. How I'd been funding the family quietly for years. How they dismissed me like furniture on a holiday, and how I chose to step away. Then I showed him Megan's messages. He didn't speak for a while, but when he finally did, his voice was different. They said you'd spin it like this. I swallowed that like poison. I told him to go, that if he needed to believe them, then I wouldn't stop him. But if he ever remembered who I really was, he could reach out. Once he left, I broke down for the first time since Thanksgiving. Not because of him, because I realized how much damage they'd done with just a few lies. But what they didn't realize is I still had one card left to play. I had never exposed what I knew, never used what I had. He'll know. By Sunday, I'd stopped crying. Something else had taken over. A kind of cold clarity I hadn't felt in years. They hadn't just pushed me too far. They lit the fuse and stood there watching with popcorn. And Sam. He hadn't texted again. I didn't expect him to, but I knew if he really knew me, he'd come back. I started thinking not about what they did, but what they depended on. Not the petty stuff, the logins and memberships, but the things they didn't realize I still controlled, like the house. 3 years ago, after Dad died and the mortgage was suddenly unmanageable, I offered to take it over. I had better credit, no kids, and a solid income. The plan was simple. I'd buy the house in my name. They'd live there, and I'd rent it to them at a low rate. I didn't even charge them the full payment, just enough to make it feel mutual. They called it generous. Then they called it normal. Then they forgot I owned it, until I changed the locks. I waited until they were all out. Sunday night dinner at Aunt Carol's. I drove over with a locksmith I'd hired off Thumbtack. I had the deed in my glove box. 40 minutes later, every keyhole on the property was new. Then I left a note taped to the door. This property is no longer available for disrespect. I didn't answer the calls that followed. I didn't even listen to the voicemails. But I did hear about what happened next from someone I didn't expect. Jake, my cousin, black sheep, left the family years ago after Mom called him a failure in front of his girlfriend. We hadn't talked in forever, but he texted me that night. Just heard what you did. Absolute legend. Proud of you. He told me they showed up to a locked house and lost it. Mom was sobbing on the porch. Ethan tried to force the back door open, and when that failed, he yelled into the mailbox like it was listening. Chloe tried calling the police, but the police just checked the property record, nodded, and left. I still wasn't satisfied. Monday morning, I filed the paperwork to formally evict them. I knew they could stall it, maybe even drag it out, but the point wasn't to get them out immediately. The point was to remind them I wasn't the weak one, that the pie-walking, silence-keeping, always paying Lisa was gone. Later that day, Sam showed up at my door. No text, no warning, just standing there with that look like he wasn't sure if he was about to fix something or make it worse. I didn't say anything, just waited. He finally spoke. I talked to Megan again. I talked to your cousin too. And then I realized if even half of what you said was made up, why were they so scared when you stopped answering? I didn't reply. He kept talking. I'm sorry. I believe them even for a second. That's on me. I told him this wasn't something we could just sweep under the rug. Not when it broke something I wasn't sure could be repaired. He didn't ask to come in. He just said he'd wait, however long it took, for me to believe he was different from them. I closed the door gently, not as a no, not as a yes either. But the part that really hit me was the message I got 2 hours later, an email from my mom. It was a forwarded confirmation. Subject line, payment successful, $12,000 wire transfer sent. She tried to pay me off to get the house back. No apology, no explanation, just money, as if I could be bought. But now I knew exactly how much they feared losing me. They thought that was my price. They had no idea the real payment hadn't come due yet. Not even close. $12,000. That's what they thought I was worth. It wasn't even a message from my mother directly. Just an automated confirmation from her bank forwarded to my email like I was an invoice. The subject line read, payment successful. $12,000, wire transfer sent. That was it. No note, no apology, not even a subject line in her own words. They weren't reaching out to reconnect. They were trying to pay me off like a loose end that needed to disappear quietly. I didn't touch the money. I didn't even log in to confirm it. I just left it there, floating in the void between our last real conversation and the complete collapse of our relationship. Meanwhile, they were still locked out of the house. Jake had driven by again. He said they brought sleeping bags and were parked outside like squatters. Ethan pacing in a hoodie and gym shorts. Chloe holding Oliver like a baby. My mom sitting stiff in the front seat, arms crossed like a prisoner in a silent protest. They're acting like you burned the place down, Jake said. All you did was change the locks. I knew better. I hadn't just locked a door, I'd closed a chapter. They thought they'd get to rewrite whenever it suited them. But I wasn't done. I'd spent years documenting everything. Not because I was expecting this, but because I've always known they didn't see me as part of the core family. I was the branch account, the emergency ATM, the one who didn't have kids, so why not help? The one who always got the seat next to the fridge or no seat at all. So I went through every folder on my computer, every cloud backup. I compiled screenshots, receipts, documents, and messages, the recurring monthly grocery contributions labeled family, the streaming service subscriptions all under my email, the Costco receipts I paid every time Ethan forgot his wallet, the locksmith invoice from last week, and most importantly, the scanned copy of the original mortgage agreement, the one where I, Lisa Morris, was the sole owner of the property. It included the text from Chloe when I agreed to take over the mortgage. Just put it in your name for now. It'll make things easier. Mom can't handle more paperwork right now. We'll deal with it later. Later never came. He'll know. I put it all in a Google Drive folder titled What You Took for Granted. Then I sent it to Sam. No message, just the link. He called me 10 minutes later, voice low, quiet, like the wind had been knocked out of him. You had all this the whole time. I didn't answer. I accused you of being unstable, and you didn't even show me any of this. You just took it. He was quiet again. I'm sorry. I don't think I really understood who you were until now. I asked him what changed. He said, "Your mom texted me yesterday. Told me you were spiraling, that you'd always done this. Isolate, punish people, hold grudges." I asked what he told her. That I was done talking to anyone who didn't know what gratitude was. It should have felt like a victory, but it didn't. Not yet. I appreciated the apology, but this wasn't about Sam anymore. This had gone deeper than relationships. It had touched something old, something rotted that I'd been patching up for years with money, silence, and sweet potato pie. And now I had one more thing. Dad's will. The real one. I found it in a folder labeled Estate Final on the external drive he'd given me the year before he passed. I'd never opened it. I didn't want to. But something told me it was time. And there it was. To my daughter Lisa, I leave the house and all associated responsibilities. Not my mom, not Chloe, not Ethan. Me. Dated, signed, witnessed. They had known. They had to. There was no way they just forgot. They just never filed it. Probably because it didn't suit them. Because it gave the power to the one person they were used to borrowing it from. I made 5 copies. On Monday morning, I'd send one to each of them with tracking. But the 6th, that one was going to court. Monday morning came quietly. No texts, no calls, just silence. That uneasy, dense kind of silence that follows a storm you know isn't done yet. The copies of Dad's will were already printed, sealed, and labeled. I drove them myself. Certified mail. Signature required. One went to Chloe's house, one to Ethan's P.O. box, one to Mom, one to their lawyer, because I knew they had one on retainer from some old estate issue with my aunt, one to Sam. Not because he needed it anymore, but because I wanted him to see it. No summaries, no opinions, just facts. The 6th I hand-delivered to my attorney. We filed it that afternoon. It wasn't about throwing them out. They were already gone, scattered into guest rooms and couches and rented hotel rooms. It was about finality, about burying the myth they'd built around what the house was. Some shared legacy they believed belonged to all of us equally. It never was. They just liked pretending it was. Jake texted me later that day. They just found out. Ethan called Aunt Carol sobbing, Mom screaming about contesting it. I told him they could scream into the wind. The document was ironclad, notarized, witnessed, filed before Dad even passed. And then, like clockwork, the story started. A Facebook post from Chloe about being betrayed by the one person we thought was family. A vague Instagram story from Ethan showing a shot of a U-Haul and the caption, "When greed wins, everyone loses." But the best, the one that made it all click, was the voicemail from Mom. "I don't know who you are anymore. This isn't what Dad would have wanted. You're tearing this family apart." I replayed that last sentence 3 times. It was almost funny, as if it hadn't already been broken, as if they hadn't spent years splintering it with their entitlement and manipulation, and I had just been the one sweeping up the glass behind them. That night, Sam came over. I let him in this time. He didn't say much. He just looked around at the quiet, the half-unpacked boxes from when I was still trying to decide if I should move, the pie dish I hadn't had the heart to clean. He asked what I was going to do now. I told him, live. He nodded and asked if he could help clean up. I let him, not because I needed the help, but because it felt like the first real thing between us in weeks. Something small, honest. As we packed away the leftover mess, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Ethan. "Hope the house keeps you warm when you're alone." I stared at the screen for a second, then deleted it. Because here's what they never understood. I was never alone. They were just loud. And now finally they were quiet.